Hello everyone, a warm welcome to all of you in today's webinar about the features and benefits of the newly released Coventor MP 2.0 version. Today's webinar is hosted by CMC and will be presented by our guest speaker, Mr. Arnaud Perrin, who is an application engineer in MEMS R&D department at LAMS Research Company. So you can unmute yourself at any time and ask the question during the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available shortly after the webinar. So now I will hand over this forum to Mr. Arnaud, who will shed the light on today's webinar. Thank you.
I'm here to talk about the new version of Coventor MP 2.0. So Coventor MP is the platform for MEMS designer, and as you should know, it's two software. One is called Coventorware. It's a standard finite element software, and the other is MEMS Plus. MEMS Plus is for system simulation. You can use it in conjunction with Simulink or Cadence, for example. And basically, what will be covered today are the new features, the new possibilities of software. So basically, you should already know software to follow this presentation. So we will start with key new features and announcements. So something that was introduced to MEMS Plus that allow a more efficient design. So we upgraded the way to connect mesh plate to other components in MEMS Plus. Then there is two new models, MEMS Plus model I'm going to talk about. So one is the possibility to do charge bias in MEMS Plus and will apply to microphone. And the other is the possibility to do to have to have a movable gap component. So basically, is to have in plane an electrode that can have an electrostatic, a contact, or a squeeze film damping model. So that's something new. It used to be only between one movable and one fixed. Now it can be between two movable objects. Then other usability topics, so other usability change in MEMS Plus, I will talk about. And then we will move to a new way to do parametric design variation in Coventor MP. And what's new in Coventorware, so the new graphic user interface and the new post-processor upgrade. There will be a section about new application cases. So they are basically a use case, advanced way of using the software that we worked on, the application engineer at Coventor. And I will finish with the supported platform. So there is one big change, and the rest is, is a usual platform we are supporting. So at the end, there will be some room for more questions. If you want to not too much, but if you want to stop me during the presentation and ask question, as Kader said, feel free to do it. One point here, the illustration is a quad mass gyro, a 3-axis gyro, quad mass that you see the reference. It's a work from Strusov and Schkel. We found in some article, but it's also the new splash screen of MEMS Plus. So when you start the MEMS Plus 7.0, you will see on screen this image during the loading of the software. Let's start with the MEMS Plus upgraded connection and hexaedral mesh infrastructure. So here, and what you see on the screen, it's an example of a mesh plate. So here, this object is, it's a zoom, it's a small portion of inertial mass of an accelerometer. And in MEMS Plus, there is a new mechanical model you can use. You can mesh this object if you need the out of plane flexibility, for example. And the way to connect this mesh plate to other components used to be quite complicated. In the first version of this feature in 6.0 MEMS Plus, you will have to do a lot of manual work. Now we made something automated, and basically what you want to do is like this. So you have the plate, and for example, Timoshenko beam of a suspension you want to connect to this plate, and the way you the way it will work today, you just have to have the two objects to touch each other, and the face of the suspension will imprint the meshed plate, and a mechanical connector will be automatically added to the mesh plate and connected to the Timoshenko beam. So it's made automatically, it's made by the wizard. So the wizard is this icon in the software, sorry, and it comes with some properties that you have you have default properties, and you can change them to other values if needed. So this should facilitate the way the mesh plate are integrated with other components. As we show an example here, it's a MEMS Plus model of an accelerometer. Yes, the same actually. At the four corner, you have suspension, and also the straight combs here, which is a specialized component in MEMS Plus. They are also flexible and also automatically connected to the mesh plate. So created this kind of device with a very accurate capture of the flexibility of the device. It's much easier with the new software. And to illustrate, here we are showing the one mode. I think it's the number two of a model analysis of this device, showing that you will capture the Z easily, the Z flexibility, and the whole device is an accurate model. Some other enhancement we did to mesh plate. So in the previous version, meshing was quite laborious, because every time you will load a software, it will the mesh will be regenerated. So and a meshing can take a lot of time depending on the complexity of the plate you are meshing. And what's new is that instead of reloading regenerating the mesh every time, it will happen also when you update from one plugin to the other in MEMS Plus. We now we are saving the mesh in a file. So it's illustrated here. You can see the mesh file is a .sms, and actually we are also saving the geometry here indeed. So loading will be twice faster, and actually the value we are showing here, they are with the example model we have here. It's a 3-axis ST gyro we get from some reverse engineer work, and I mean the speed, the loading time increase can be much more with a more complex mesh plate. Here is not that complex actually. So here we talked about enhancement and features that were addressing the new hexahedral mechanical model, so mesh plate, and other models improvement that we bring to MEMS Plus for this version. There is two main models I'm going to talk about. The first is about constant charge bias mode in simulator, and the other is the side movable gap component. So constant charge bias. Here you have the illustration of two opposite way of biasing a device. So it could be any kind of electrostatic MEMS device. And here for the illustration, you have a microphone. It's a quarter of the microphone that is modeled. Because of symmetry plan, you can, it's efficient to only model a quarter of it. And a microphone, it's a backplate on top here with holes, and the pressure sound can go through the holes and excite the membrane. And there is a capacitance between the membrane and the backplate. I mean, there is a electrode both on the capacitance. Sorry, there is electrode both on the membrane and the backplate, and it's a variable capacitance, and the movement of the membrane that captures the pressure change will be transformed in a change of capacitance. So the two opposite way of biasing such device, the first is voltage bias. It's quite the generic one we find with many in most of the MEMS, and it's when you apply directly a voltage to the variable capacitance. And the other opposite way of biasing here, it's called charge constant bias. And for this one, you are not directly applying a voltage, you are applying a voltage through a very large resistance. And doing so, at this point, actually, I mean, on the two electrodes of the variable capacitance, you now have a constant charge. And what's going to change, it's the voltage that you can directly capture with an amplifier, actually. Here it's just a following amplifier and the inverter. And for the voltage bias, what you are capturing, it's a change of charge. It's a two opposite way of working with two opposite way of doing the first stage of electronic of a device when you want to capture a change of capacitance. So before, prior to this new version, it's only the voltage bias, constant voltage bias, that was possible to model in the MEMS Plus built-in solver, and also in MATLAB when you use MATLAB, MEMS Plus in conjunction with MATLAB. And what we added now, it's a possibility to do natively the charge bias circuit. So in MEMS Plus, in the built-in simulator, in the simulator of MEMS Plus, you now have a new possibilities. So when you have an electrical connector, so backplate, it's basically the electrode attached to the backplate here. It used to be only voltage, the kind of source type you can apply, but now you will have the possibility to click this selection list and choose charge and applied a charge that will be the constant charge corresponding to this schematic here, mockup. So, I mean, there is a reason we introduced this new way of basing devices, is especially for microphone designer, but it might apply to other applications like contact switch, for example. Charge bias is very important. So charge bias is used because it permits a much more linear output. And for a microphone, when you want to capture the voice, you really want the voice to not be distorted, something very linear, and it's better with charge bias. So to be able to study and build a microphone efficiently in MEMS Plus, charge bias, constant charge bias was something important, something we added in this version. So with this new possibility, we did some base testing and validation, and something that illustrates well the difference between a voltage bias and a charge bias is a DC sweep. So here you see something that was already possible in MEMS Plus to do a voltage DC sweep. So basically you're increasing the voltage in between the two electrodes, and thanks to extrinsic force that are always attractive, but thanks to extrinsic force, you will move the membrane up to contact to the membrane. And so it's what's happening here. You have a voltage and something, I mean, that is known, and something happening with in MEMS and electrostatic plate capacitor. It's depending on the direction of your voltage increase. So if it's an increase or a decrease, you will see different voltage to go to contact or release from contact. So here the red curve is when you increase the voltage. So you will see the membrane moving up. So here it's a position of the membrane in micron, and here it's voltages. And at some value, so let's say 27, this membrane is catastrophically going to contact. It's highly nonlinear, it's called pull-in. And from this contact, if you decrease the voltage, you will see the lift-off, so relief of the membrane at a different value. So it's well known, and it's pull-in and lift-off, and it's an aesthetic phenomena, but it's very characteristic of applying a voltage. And something new, because this study was not possible before with MEMS Plus, because you were not able to apply charge. If you apply directly charge in between two electrodes of plate capacitance, here the membrane can move, you are also applying electrostatic force. So charge and voltage will both apply electrostatic force. But when you apply charge, it's a different way of applying electrostatic force, and basically it's different. So this time you will see a continuous change of continuous displacement of the membrane up to contact, and it's not the same highly nonlinear and catastrophic contact you will see after a value. Basically, it's continuous. There is no abrupt contact, and whatever the direction of the sweep, you see the same plot, the same curve. So it was one way to verify charge bias was working properly to obtain this plot, and it's something possible now in MathPlus. So applying a charge is possible. And last but not least, but this one is really applying especially to microphone designer. So we did this verification validation summary table where we study the same microphone but with the two different biasing conditions, so the constant voltage bias and the constant charge bias, and we run them in the three different simulator solvers. You can use MEMS+ in. So in those three lines, it's always the MEMS+ model. It's a MEMS+ model imported in Cadence. It's a MEMS+ model directly in MEMS+ with a built-in simulator, and it's a MEMS+ imported in MATLAB. And indeed, if you have the constant voltage bias, you see consistency. All the results are the same. But constant charge, all the results are the same. One comment is you can see sensitivity is higher with a constant voltage bias because in constant voltage bias you have another well-known phenomena that is called electrostatic softening. So the voltage is causing electrostatic softening, and here it's negative value. So this one is bigger. Sensitivity is bigger for the microphone in constant voltage bias. But keep in mind that microphone designer, they are not. They could be, but they prefer having a more linear output rather than a bigger sensitivity. So constant charge bias is the mode that is used in microphone, and those results here basically they are new. It was not possible before to do it in MATLAB or MEMS+ built-in simulator. So that is for this new model in the built-in simulator of MEMS+, new possibility to apply charge biasing to a model. The other MEMS+ that has been added for this version, it's called movable side gap. And basically, it's a possibility to add three, and or you can have 1, 2, or 3, 3 models in plane, so between two electrodes that are in plane, and both can move. So basically, the model you can add is contact electrostatic and skew sim damping. And one example will be, so here you have again an accelerometer, so it's a bit hard to see, but you have a small mass in the middle, combs on each side to detect the movement, and at the four corner you have suspension, not easy to see. And here you have contacts, so you have stoppers at each side of the mass to stop the movement of the movement of the mass. So when you have such kind of stopper, it's mainly to protect the device. So too much movement could cause some short circuit of the configure or deterioration of the device. So basically, before the stoppers will need to be fixed, they will be fixed objects. So you will have a hard stop, and now you can model a flexible stop object here. And basically, it's what you have in a real device. You will have a designer that create flexible stoppers to kind of attenuate the shock when the mass touch the stoppers. We'll not go into details of how to add it, but basically you select the object on which you want to add the stopper. So here again it's a zoom, but this part is this part of the accelerometer, and you add the movable side gap. That would be a wireframe, and in this wireframe you add a flexible MEMS+ object. Here, for example, it's a Bernoulli beam. This Bernoulli beam you can attach to another object and fix it at some ends. Okay, so we have an application, an illustration, what you can do with such with a new model. So as I said, in this accelerometer, it could be used to model those stoppers as flexible objects. And what do you want to simulate or to test here? It could be, for example, a shock when you drop your phone. So really your mobile phone, your smartphone, you have it in your hands and you let it fall on the floor. There will be a shock. This shock, you might, you should be able to quantify it. So what is the acceleration? Because mainly a shock will be an acceleration. What is the acceleration applied to the smartphone? And in the smartphone, you certainly have an accelerometer or more, and how the accelerometer will react to this shock. So basically, to do this, you will create the model in MENS+. So here we are illustrating that you are using the MENS+ component library to assemble this device. You can import this device in MATLAB to conduct a study that will be mainly, so it should be this one first, mainly this. So on top here, you are seeing the input. It's sorry, the input is it's a profile of a large acceleration. It is basically the shock happening to the smartphone when it hits the ground, and a simulation can give you how the mass is moving with this shock. And here is what you get here. And we did two models with two different stoppers. So one with a fixed stopper and one with a flexible stopper. And yeah, here we have an animation. So here we are zooming on the stopper itself, and the animation is for a flexible stopper. So you can see the stopper will deform and absorb some of the movement of the device. So basically, when you look at the movement itself, the results are very similar. Maybe there is more bouncing with the blue line. That is for the fixed stopper, but it goes to contact, it bounces, and when it's released, it's oscillating a lot. It's already an interesting result, but more interesting and something you can do with MENS+ will be to extract the contact force on the stopper. And here, as you can see, the blue and the red, they are very different because you have to notice we are using two different axes, and there is one order of magnitude, a factor 10 between the two. So because the stopper, in the case of stopper is flexible, you are absorbing more force, and the contact is less abrupt, and basically you created a better stopper. So this is the kind of study you can do. You will be able to test other configuration, other size, other shape, complex suspension for the stopper, and see what is the one that is the most satisfactory for to stop the device. It's one example of what you can do with this new model. Keep in mind that this model is also allowing electrostatic between the two electrodes, and fluidic damping, so it can be used for other purposes. So that was the two new model for MENS+. Now we are more topics that are usabilities and upgrades, many of them. I will not name them now because we will see them right now. So the first one, it's improve usability. It's a feature called Open in Innovator that applied to subschematic. So some context is in MENS+ for complex devices like this 3-axis gyro here. You can use some hierarchy in the device, meaning that some subpart of this big model can be model as subschematic, and a subschematic, it will be, so in the case of this suspension, for example, will be a MEMS+ model of this object itself that is invoked, used in the master schematic. And because this suspension is used 4 times at the 4 corner here, you will use 4 times the same subschematic, same schematic. So later, if you have to do an improvement, a change or a correction to this schematic, you can right-click it and do the change, save it, and it will automatically update the master schematic. The new feature, because the schematic was already existing, the feature is to ease this way of modifying the subschematic with a new feature that's called Open Innovator. So if you right-click the subschematic on the canvas or in the list of components, you can choose Open in Innovator. It will create this. It will open the object in MENS+ itself. You can modify it and save it as already said. So it will make it easier to use hierarchy in MENS+. Another upgrade in usability. So yeah, this one is maybe smaller, but we introduce the tooltips and warnings in the simulator plugin. So now if you hover on top of an item, a simulation, you will see key information, like for a DC sweep, what is the source that is swept, what are the DC values on the other sources. And if the analysis has been run, you will see also the total elapsed time, so the simulation time. We introduce also warnings, so you might see item in orange, and if you hover with your mouse on the item, you will see a warning. Here the warning is for the DC sweep, we ask for more than 25, so 100,000 iteration. It's a lot, simulation might be very long, but it's just a warning. You can ignore the warning and run the analysis anyway if you want. Last, there is error, so this time it's something you did that prevent us, the software, to run the analysis. And basically here the error is because you ask for a 0 value of iteration, and you cannot run a DC sweep with a 0 iteration. So you have warning that asks you to change the value to run the simulation. So those usability changes are in the new version of MES Plus. MES Plus 7.0. There is another warning. So this one that will appear in MATLAB when you use the software in conjunction with MATLAB and Simulink, and it's a warning about transient simulation, so time domain simulation. And it needs some explanation, but when you have a model, finite element model, or a MES Plus model in MATLAB, and you want to run a time domain simulation, it will be a variable time step solve. And if you have a model undamped, so basically a model that can have have infinite Q factor for all these frequencies, so especially the high frequencies, you will struggle with the simulation, meaning the first you have very high frequencies that are possible in your model, and they will eventually ring at some point, and very high frequency means very small period. So a time step that need to be even smaller than those very small periods. So your variable time step solver will create very small time step, and best case scenario, you will see your simulation not move, so taking a very, very, very long time. And worst case scenario, it will not converge and fail into error. So it's a good practice. It's a known good practice, and something that should be done. It's to always have some kind of numerical dumping in your device. And the numerical dumping, so-called numerical dumping, it's called Rayleigh dumping. And the beta value, there is two values in Rayleigh dumping, there is alpha and beta, but the beta Rayleigh dumping is important because it's the one that allows to damp out high frequencies. So the idea is to always have a value small enough to not deteriorate the behavior of the device at the frequencies of interest that tend to be smaller frequencies, and to have a value big enough to damp out the high frequencies. If you do that, you will not have infinite Q factors, high frequencies with infinite Q factor, and you will have a transient simulation that run. So it's more than a good practice, because most of the time it will be a reason why customers, users have issues with the time domain transient simulation. So we implemented a warning, and if you start to a transient with a model without Rayleigh dumping, you will see the warning that is an invitation for you to change your model and add Rayleigh dumping. Again, it's a warning. If you want to ignore the warning and run the simulation, it's possible. So it applies to MATLAB, in which you can run transient analysis. It's also indeed applied to Simulink, where you can also run transient simulation with a MES Plus model. The error message is the same. The difference is in Simulink, it will appear as a warning in the diagnostic viewer. So at the bottom of your Simulink window, Simulink schematic, you will see one warning, you can click on it and you will see the message here. Same idea, without a relay dumping beta value, it's likely that you will be unsuccessful running a simulation. Another improvement, so to usability of our model in MathPlus we did for this release, it's in the get info of the squeezing dumping model. So squeezing dumping, it's something you can add. So we talked about movable side gap, for example. You can add it in movable side gap. You can also add it out of plane between a plate and a substrate, for example. And it's a model. I mean, for this model, the way an open edge, so an edge flow, an open edge that we call edge flow is model, it's particular. So basically, with such model, you have fluidic pins. You can see them here, that are where we are solving the Reynolds equation, so the fluidic equation. And on the edge, you have three possibilities. So the edge can be closed, like there is a wall on the edge, so no flow is possible. It's a zero flow condition. Edge can be said to be internal. It's when this edge is here because you splitted the model in different plates, but it's basically meaning that it's connected to another plate and there is a flow and the pressure is shared between the two models, or it could be an open edge. An open edge in fluidics for MEMS, it's model with a fluid resistor. At those dimensions, there is kind of a transition distance that is modeled by the elongation, and basically a fluidic resistor modeling the fact that the atmospheric pressure is not directly at the edge, but at some distance. And this model exists, and in the documentation you will find some references if you have to know the models. And but what we put in the cat info, so something you will have if you right-click the gap model, you will have information on the physical model, and you will be able to see the value of this elongation. So it can help to understand how your model is behave and what are the value used. And I mean, you can see automatic. It's because by default we are implementing an automatic elongation based on a reference paper from Veyola, Somali, and Bao. But you can take control and put your own elongation or your own elongation. Okay, so that's this improvement is to help understanding a model and interact with it. Another usability change we did to MathPlus, and this time it concerns export to GDS. So in MathPlus you can create a model, you can simulate it, and at some point you want to get the 2D description of this model as a GDS, as a layout. You can use the feature called export to GDS. And what's new? So before the release, what was possible, when there is perforation, so you have a mass with perforation, what was happening in MathPlus is you will have two GDS, one for the contour of the mass and one for the perforation. And basically it was two positive. Yeah, basically one was positive, the other was negative, and the Boolean operation will give you the correct perforated GDS. That was a choice to export as two GDS, and we added the possibility to export as just one GDS, like the Boolean operation is done prior to exporting the GDS. And this will be done thanks to a properties in the deposit called indeed GDS export Boolean perforation with positive geometry. And if you prefer having everything on one GDS, you will click this checkbox. If you want to keep two GDS, one positive and negative, you can keep the box unchecked. Sorry. So yeah, that's a change that offers a new possibility to export GDS. So yeah, there were a lot of new features and usability change to MathPlus. So keep in mind, MEMS+ is the compact finite element high order solver for specialized for IC simulation and system simulation. There is also in Coventor MP the MEMS platform developed by Coventor, Coventorware, and Coventorware it's the historic software, it's the standard finite element software. So first change or new or better features we have in MEMS+ is basically a way to have the two software interact together. So it's a way to send a MEMS+ model to Coventorware. So MEMS+ model, as you know, you assemble some component from the MEMS+ specialized component library, and you can do something that is fully parameterizable, for example, and you might want to send this model for verification or for other work into Coventorware for standard finite element analysis. And these possibilities offer, it will directly transfer the material properties, so the Young modulus of a material, for example, the stress, pre-stress, if there is any, Poisson ratio, I mean, all the relevant material properties, I mean, all the material properties, basically, the solid geometry, indeed, and what's new, you will have the measure setting and the geometric entity names, and directly the mesh that is created and sent to MEMS+. The geometric entity names, it's basically how you are going to apply boundary conditions. So in MEMS+, for example, this face may be declared as fixed. It's a boundary condition. I mean, the four faces, basically. It will be sent to Coventorware. So in Coventorware, those patches corresponding to those faces, they will exist and be named as fixed. So basically, directly from MEMS+, you will have a ready to simulate meshed model in Coventorware. So that could be used if you need to do point simulation in a Coventorware, or if you need to do verification of some mechanical MEMS+ result, for example. So here for illustration, basically on the right you have the MEMS+ model, and to the different objects in MEMS+, you will be able to, I mean, you have properties to apply the meshing properties. Number of element in Z, for example, the type of the type of mesh you want to apply, all this, and when you do the export to Coventorware, you will directly obtain the meshed accelerometer ready for simulation. Another illustration is in MEMS+, you have access to a lot of parameterization. So for example, the width of the suspension is fully parameterized. Sorry, it's parametric. You can use a parameter, and here you see the properties of this beam, and you can see that everything, so the width of the beam, for example, the length, everything can be controlled with a variable. Sorry. So, and you can also introduce a variable that will be your critical dimension. So nominal value is 0, but or could be something else, but variation of it will be a way for you to reflect the process variation. And because it's a variable, you could think of, for example, a script a way to export different models for different value of critical dimension and study the impact of the critical dimension on results. So basically, this way of using parameterization that is extensive in MEMS+ and Coventorware could be a way to, I mean, it offers a fully scriptable environment and a way to do advanced study of variation of a model. Another Coventorware change is this one. So here you see yes, you see that we have in Coventorware a new graphic user interface, so we have a more fresh, modern look. as you can see here, that should make the software, I mean, nicer to use and even easier to use. Used to be not that modern. And also we have a much better upgraded version of the visualizer. So it's now TechPod 360, the 2020 version, so the new version, and it should allow advanced possibilities with the visualizer. So basically, there is the way to use Python scripting to query, to do advanced query of results, for example. That's something possible. So that here it's the conclusion of the new features. So what was added to the software. Now I have a section about new application examples, so new advanced use case. I mean, advanced use case of how you can use our software. So let's start here with application example applied to a 3-axis gyro, an example I already talked about. And here the idea is to take advantage of MENS+ being fast and fully parameterized and accurate. So basically, you could think of studying process variation. And here we are illustrating two ways of doing process variation. So you can think of some values, some variation that are changing depending on where on the wafer you are building your device. And it's something that happened. It's highly related, for example, to the etching tools you are using. And for example, there is a lot of etching tools where I mean, it's a common phenomena. It could be not exactly this, but that you have silicon angles that are closer to zero in the center of the device, and silicon angles that tend to change and to be bigger at the edges of the wafer. And basically, this will be an input for MENS+ simulation. And in MENS+ simulation, you can do, for a gyroscope, you can easily study frequencies change or quadrature effect. Quadrature is the spurious parasitic signal you might have on the sense, on on the sense electrode, even when there is no rotation applied to the device. So it's an artifact you don't want. So the input here, it's a waveform map of critical dimension loss and also silicon angle. And basically the two output, we decided to study quadrature and the frequencies value shift depending on the position on the map. And here you can see for a position in X, so basically on this axis, you can see how those two values are changing. And here it's something we decided to plot. We could have plotted for any position on the map. Basically, we could have a waveform map output of the quadrature. Another way to study process variation is Monte Carlo. So this time you're not referring to a map, but to a distribution, a normal distribution of a value. So here we are showing the critical dimension variation with a nominal value of 0 and a sigma delta deviation. And this is the input. So Monte Carlo, it's basically you're running a lot of simulation by randomly changing the value respecting shape of variation. Here it's a Gaussian, a nominal distribution, and you look at how is distributed the output. So for example, here the frequency distribution, but basically we're also having the quadrature, and many output can be studied. But basically, knowing the distribution, distribution of your process variation, you can know how the frequency will be distributed. So that were two examples of studying process variation, waveform map or Monte Carlo, and they are studies. So, you can think of them as white paper. So some study we did during the last release cycle. Another example here, it's a sealed cavity Q factor, temperature and pressure. So I'll explain. First, for a regular gyroscope, not sealed. So if you think of Q factors, and it's well known that it's well known that the main reason for dissipation is in MEMS is air. Actually, it's fluid. it's fluid damping, and it's basically your device struggling against air. So squeeze fin damping is the main mechanism. And basically in MEMS Plus, you can add squeeze fin damping in comps, for example, but also in plates that will allow you to study the fluidic dissipation of this device. And this dissipation is very sensitive to pressure. So at atmospheric pressure or higher pressure, you will see the Q factor change, and basically the smaller the pressure, the higher is the Q factor. And it is well reflected by the results here. But something else that is kind of the plateau limit of Q factor, it's a well-known phenomena that is thermoelastic damping. Thermoelastic damping, you will be able to study it in Coventor wear. And here to illustrate, we are showing the thermal distribution on one of the key suspension of this device. And thermoelastic damping will give you a plateau of Q factor that you can also add to your model. And we did it here. So there is two plots. First are raw result from MEMS Plus, and they're showing the Q factor and the Q factor increase with pressures that decrease. The second is a combination of the two, and we show the way you are summing Q factors. It's an inverse sum basically, and this one is seeing the same change in Q factor for low pressure up to some values that will be basically a plateau, and that is the thermoelastic damping Q factor. So this is a study you can do with MEMS Plus, but we went a bit further and we wanted to know how a device, the Q factor of a device is behaving after this device is sealed. So basically you have a package, and for a gyroscope you want to do this package at low pressure, so under a vacuum. And when you sealed it, so when you close this package, you are kind of you are doing it at one pressure, one temperature. And those two pressure and temperature, they might evolve later, but basically they will be linked with the gas law, so ideal gas law, for example. And you will later have a link between temperature and pressure. And later in the life of the device, if you change the temperature, you will see the Q factor change here, and it's study you can do in MEMS Plus. And this time here we are linking temperature and pressure thanks to the temperature and pressure that was at the time we sealed the device, and how it evolved with respect to the ideal gas law after. So yeah, you have this note here. So I mean, for all the example here, there are stuff you could add. You could ask application engineer. So for you, it will be to ask CMC directly if you want to know more about them. This one can be found in the documentation. So if you type F1 from MEMS Plus or Coventor wear, and in the search bar you search for temperature dependent Q factor, you will find it. Another application example, and the last one. So this one is something we added. It's a script to calculate momentum calculation. So I will try to be quite quick here, but basically here we are looking at a simple model we created as an example here. It's a tuning fork. It's really the tuning fork that you will use to tune your guitar or your piano, and it's made of two arms. And the two first mode of oscillations are those two you see here. And the first one is basically in phase movement of the two arms. The two arms are moving or tilting, rotation, like this in the same direction. The second one is out of phase. And basically there is a big difference between those two, is the number two is balanced. This one is unbalanced. So with the number two, let's start with the first one. This unbalanced one, not all the mass, but all the mass of the two arms are moving in the same direction at the same time. So this will exert some force on the fixation, for example, and it's an unbalanced mode. With this mode, half the mass, moving mass, is going one direction, when half the mass is going the other direction. the force are cancelling each other. This one is balance. So basically, if you excite dissociation will apply much less or none force to this twist stem, for example. And basically, in application, this one, for example, will have an higher Q factor because there will be less substrate Q factor dissipation, sorry. And another application, it will be for a gyroscope designer, for example. Gyroscope designer, they have a drive mode, a mode at which the device is constantly excited. And you want this mode to be as balanced as possible, because if it's not balanced, it will exert some force to the package. It might excite all the device. It might excite the sense mode. It might be the reason for unwanted sense movement that will be not something you want to capture. So here we created a script. Script is quite simple. It's this script here that will basically calculate the momentum. So momentum, it's for one mode, one direction. It is basically the volume integral of the velocities. And if everything balance, this volume integral for this mode, for example, it's close to zero, or it's almost zero, but with numerical results, it's kind of a numerical zero, quite a small value. So this script will allow you to calculate the momentum, and it's something we work on during the last release cycle. So that was the last example. And let's quickly talk about the platform support, because there is something new that is important. So MENS Plus is now supported on Linux. I have to rephrase. MENS Plus was already supported on Linux. MENS Plus, working in conjunction with MATLAB scripting, is supported on Linux. So before, if you wanted to use a MENS Plus model within a MATLAB script or a Simulink device, you were forced to do it on Windows for some reason. And now we introduce the possibility to do it on Linux. And the key point is first, it will allow you to use your favorite operating system, but it's not only that. It's something recent we are seeing more and more. It's HPC, high performance computing clusters. And it could be a farm of, computer, a lot of servers. It could be something cloud-based. You are renting to Amazon or Microsoft or whoever you want to rent to. But basically, those environments, they are 99% of the time, maybe 100% of the time, running on Linux. So having MATLAB, that is the scripting way, script that is enhancing the scripting capabilities to use MENS Plus, will allow for HPC, so parallelization or the use of a very good machine that are renting from HPC. So that's a big change. MENS Plus MATLAB on Linux is possible, and you see the table. Here you can see everything that's possible. Basically, there is nothing new. One caveat is the MATLAB Simulink on Linux is on Red Hat 7. A part of that we are supporting Red Hat 6 also, and Windows 10. One thing you cannot do is to run Cadence on Windows 10, but it's not. It's not MENS Plus. There is no Cadence working on Windows, so you will not have support of MENS Plus Cadence on Windows. Yes. Okay, so that was the last slide, and thank you very much for having listening